Hi, I'm Dave, this is Let's Click Photography, and this week we're out doing some bird photography. Now, some of you may remember that last year I did bird photography for the very first time and found myself thoroughly enjoying it. And so this year I've decided that I want to buy a lens capable of doing bird photography to have a bit of fun. Now, in Canon's RF lineup there are 3 lenses that kind of appeal to me, sub £1,000. The Canon RF 100 to 400, and then they've got 2 prime lenses, which is a 600mm prime and an 800mm prime. Both of those primes are constant aperture lenses at f11. Yep, you heard that right. The widest they can go to is f11. So as always, I've reached out to Canon UK and said, can you loan me these lenses? And they said, yeah, no problem. So the lens that Canon have lent me to try out first is this one. It is the Canon RF 800mm f11. Now this is a prime lens, so 800mm focal length is all it does. It doesn't change focal length at all, there's no zooming in, zooming out. However, what it does do is change its physical length. So this lens has 2 modes. It's got what's called the stowaway mode, where it packs down fairly neatly into what is a compact size for an 800mm lens. And you've got the shooting mode, which if you try and turn the camera on in this position, it will tell you need to go into. Unlock the lens, like so, pull it out, lock the lens back up, and now you're in the shooting mode for this lens. And as you can see there, that is substantially longer. So now that we've got it into shooting size, what are the bells and whistles are there on this lens? Well, we've got 3 switches, our focus limiter, which is either on full or limited to 20 meters plus. So for today I'm just going to leave that on full. The minimum focusing distance with this lens is 6 meters. You've then got your autofocus and manual focus switch, and then your image stabilizer. Now the image stabilization on this, coupled with the Canon R6, gives this 4 stops of image stabilization. But of course, stabilization only stops the camera shake that you're giving it. Won't help you to slow your shutter down for birds in flight or any kind of motion that you're photographing. What there also is on this lens, which I really like actually, is it has an inbuilt tripod mount, which means that you don't need a collar. Now, I have used lenses with collars before, and it does add to the bulk of a lens. The lens itself is constructed out of rubber on the end here, which does seem to keep it a little bit warmer than the rest of the lens, and that is where you're probably likely to hold it to minimize any camera shake when you're shooting handheld. And the rest of the lens is made out of plastic, apart from the mount, which is a metal mount. It feels pretty good in the hand, and so the big question really does become, how does it handle that f11 constant aperture in light such as this? Reasons why I've come out today to test it under these conditions, which are definitely less than ideal, is because I want to see whether this lens is really going to be usable for me at all, because that constant f11, when the UK is bathed 50% of the year in grey cloud and quite diminished light, what kind of results am I going to get out of that lens? Now every image that you're seeing on screen today is straight out of camera. I've put this on to shoot in RAW and JPEG, and all of the images that I put on screen today are going to be JPEG. I'm not going to do anything with them at all in post. And what I've done is I've switched the camera over to the fine detail profile. That should be noted is because of this constant f11 aperture, it limits your autofocus, limits your focal point range. So instead of covering the entire frame, instead you're limited to the center, which if I pop it there, you can see that square there is the limitation of where you can focus, and that's because the aperture isn't wide enough to allow focus outside of that zone. And in terms of the autofocus, so far I'm finding it is fairly responsive. It's slow, but that's to be expected at 800mm. But once it is locked on, it's fairly sticky and does its job well. I'm fairly certain that in really good light, I wouldn't have any issues whatsoever with autofocus. But as it is struggling a little bit. Definitely when I turn it into some undergrowth to hit focus marks. Now I do have this lens for the next week, so you definitely will expect to see more of me using it, and I'll form more of an opinion as I do that. Today was really about seeing how I'd get on with it in this type of conditions. Now this is never going to produce fantastic photography, and if you want to see this water park in a better light and the birds that fly around it, then check out this video here when it was with the 100 to 500 last summer. And as for this lens, well, I'm going to reserve judgment on it until I've tried it out over a few days, different light conditions, had it on the Eos R, tried it out a bit more with the R6, and I'll share those results with you. But that's it from me today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one pretty soon. Bye.